Picture this date, May 24th, 1991. In just 36 hours, the sky between Africa and the Middle East turned into a secret highway, a world record that no one has been able to break to this day. 14,325 people were evacuated from a war zone and transported to Israel. El Airlines Boeing 747 took off carrying over 1,000 passengers. They had to remove all the seats so that people could fit sitting on the floor like sardines. And during that flight, thousands of feet in the air, 2 babies were born. They took off as Africans in mortal danger and landed as free Israeli citizens. Subscribe. Everyone knows this operation as a humanitarian miracle, but there's a detail, a hidden connection that most people overlook. Those people weren't just any refugees. They weren't recent converts. They were the protagonists of the oldest mystery in our history. They were part of the lost tribe of Ada. And today we're going to analyze why. Their return is not just a demographic milestone, but the fulfillment of a prophecy that gives many geopolitical analysts goosebumps. Because if Dan has returned, the clock has started ticking for the rest of the tribes. Welcome. This is Ari in Israel. To grasp this, let's rewind 2,700 years. Do you remember the video we made recently about the tribe of Manasseh in India? The video was very well received by you because we realized that lost doesn't mean disappeared, it means forgotten. According to the official story according to the Bible, in the year 722 before Common Era, the Assyrian Empire conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. 10 out of the 12 tribes were wiped off the map, deported to unknown places. Among them was the tribe of Dan, the son of the patriarch Jacob. For centuries, academic historians, those who write from comfortable offices in Europe, said that the search for those tribes was a myth. They said that they had assimilated, that they no longer existed, but while they were writing skeptical books in the mountains of Ethiopia, those found along the Nile River were a community that refused to disappear. They called themselves Beta Israel, that is, the house of Israel. Here's where the story gets interesting. Interesting? Because unlike other groups who claim to be Jewish, the Beta Israel had something that no one else had. A time capsule. I want you to pay attention to this fact because it's the key evidence. When they were found, these Jews from Ethiopia practiced a religion that left many people in shock. They strictly observed the Sabbath as described in the Torah, circumcised their sons on the 8th day, had very specific dietary laws as dictated in the Torah, in the Old Testament, in the books of Moses, which relates to kosher food. But here's the most curious thing and key evidence. They didn't know what Hanukkah was, the traditional Jewish holiday celebrated in mid-December. They didn't know what the festival of Purim was. Consider this. How is it that today a Jew might not celebrate Hanukkah or Purim? The answer then is obviously unsettling because of its logic. Hanukkah celebrates the victory of the Maccabees in the 2nd century before Common Era, and Purim celebrates the salvation of the Jewish people when they were captives of the Persian Empire. If the Beta Israel of Africa did not know about these holidays, it means that they left Israel before these events, both Hanukkah and Purim, took place. They left before the Second Temple, they left before the Talmud was written. Their Judaism is a living fossil from the time of the First Temple, frozen in time for more than 2,000 years in the heart of Africa. They didn't have rabbis, they had priests called Kesim, very closely related to Israel. Did they perform Pesach sacrifices, the biblical Passover? Something that the rest of the Jews stopped doing when the Romans burned the Temple of Jerusalem in the year 70. This, my friends, you can't make up. Now, I know what many of you are thinking, and I like that you're being critical. Surely you'll say, Ari, yes, but all this sounds very romantic. But what does science say, right? That they're simply local Ethiopians who converted to Judaism at some point in history, probably a few centuries ago, and believed the legend, right? That's a valid question. In fact, in the 80s and 90s, the first genetic studies said exactly that they seemed to be genetically Ethiopian and nothing more. And the skeptics rubbed their hands together and said, see, that's simply a myth. But science advanced, DNA studies improved, and the most recent ones, done from the year 2000 onward, found something that changed the narrative. Yes, there's a lot of local mixing, which is obvious after more than 2000 years, but they found a minority genetic component, an undeniable trace that comes from the Middle East. The geneticists found paternal lineages that are not common in Africa, but that match those of ancient Semitic populations. The current scientific conclusion is that there was a core group of ancient Israelites who migrated, settled, and mixed with the local population more than 2,500 years ago. They are not recent converts. They are descendants of an ancient migration. And we don't just need DNA, we have historical documents. In the 9th century, a traveler named name. That says it all, the Danite. He accurately described an independent Jewish state in Africa in the 9th century descended, according to them, from the tribe of Dan. By the 9th century, the tribe that remained there already had its identity developed, from which we understand that it was not something that happened later. It wasn't the 12th, 13th, or 14th century, we're talking about the 9th century, and also the 16th century. The famous Rabbi David Benzingra, known as the Rabbas, one of the greatest legal authorities in history, wrote from Egypt. The Jews who came from the land of Cush are without a doubt from the tribe of Dan. For those who are not very familiar with the biblical context, Cush is the word used to refer to the lands of Africa. And the rabbi didn't say maybe, he said. Without a doubt, they are from the tribe of Dan. It's important if you like listening to music, if you like everything related to Israel, music itself infused with the biblical context and so on. I invite you to go and listen to the channel La Voz de Sion. There you can listen to Psalms of King David set to music in Hebrew and Spanish. It's a project that's growing and I'm sure you're going to like it a lot. Go and check out La Voz de Sion with a Z. I assure you, you'll be very pleasantly surprised. Listening to biblical stories, psalms, and proverbs set to music with the best Hebrew rhythms. Now, in the modern age, the great Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's official 1973 recognition, which enabled them to come to Israel, was not a modern political invention. It was based precisely on a legal precedent from 400 years ago, and on the scientific research that was carried out at the time. The tribe of Dan was never lost. For those who knew where to look, it was simply isolated. But the return home was not a bed of roses, it was a story of spies and tragedy. First, there was Operation Moses. In the 1980s, thousands of Ethiopian Jews walked on foot to Sudan, crossing deserts, facing bandits and hunger. Hundreds died along the way, dying while dreaming of a Jerusalem they had never seen. Then, when the political situation in Ethiopia collapsed in 1991, Israel launched Operation Solomon, which is well known as the massive airlift I mentioned at the beginning. Israel didn't ask the United Nations for permission, didn't wait for resolutions, sent its planes, paid what needed to be paid, and got its people out. Because that's the difference between having a state and not having one. Now, I'm not going to paint you a fairy tale. Their arrival in Israel was very tough for them. Imagine people coming from rural villages without electricity, landing in an Israel. He launched the Salomon, known in the year 2000, the government of Operation Salomon, very well known in the year 2000. The government discovered that the donations were powerless. It was in the year In 2000, Noah gave on people. Even at the beginning, the rabbinate required them to undergo a symbolic conversion to remove, according to them, any doubt, something that many felt was a slap in the face to their history of resistance. But look, finally, where we are today, the year 2025. Today, there are more than 170,000 Israelis of Ethiopian origin here in the land of Israel. You can see them in the elite units of the army. You can see them in parliament. They have ambassadors, doctors, officers. Their festival, the Zig, where they go up to Jerusalem and pray dressed in white, is already a national holiday in Israel. They have gone from being a lost tribe to being part of the backbone of the nation. And here I want to ask you, before watching this video, how many of you actually knew that those descendants of the Edad tribe had been found? Let me know and allow me to ask the following. If the Edad tribe was hidden in plain sight in Africa for 2,700 years, where do you think the other 8 tribes are? The tribe of Manas has appeared too, right? You can watch my recent video about them on my channel. Do you think we could find similar traces today in Asia or even in America? Leave me your opinion here, down below. Well, now I raised this question because this is important for those of you watching me from Latin America, from the United States, or from Europe, because the existence of the Edad tribe is the flaw in the matrix, which completely destroys the modern narrative that Zionism is a white colonialist movement. At universities and at the United Nations now, all their progressive vibe is loaded with anti-Jewish propaganda. They love to sell the idea that Israel is a European enclave in the Middle East, a branch of the West, as many say. But that lie falls apart when you see an Ethiopian Jew kissing the land of Israel. Here you have a black African people who didn't convert because of missionaries, but who kept the Torah in the mountains of Ethiopia. Centuries before Christianity reached Rome or Islam appeared in Arabia. They are not privileged white people. They are living proof that the Jewish people are not a modern invention, nor a European invention, but a nation formed in the Middle East, which was dispersed and has the ancestral right to return, no matter the color of their skin. Consider the timeline. Meanwhile, Europe was still worshipping trees and stones. And long before the Crusades or the British Empire, before the Arabs stopped being polytheists and created Islam, the grandparents of these Ethiopians were praying toward Jerusalem, sacrificing the Passover lamb, circumcising their sons, and singing in their songs about a land called Zion. Their presence here reminds us that the connection to this land predates any modern political conflict. By rescuing them, Israel was not importing settlers. It was reuniting a family that had been separated 2,700 years ago. So, the next time you hear that Judaism is foreign to this region, remember the Beta Israel. They kept the flame alive in Africa when the rest of the world didn't even know how to read, proving that Israel's identity is as ancient and diverse as history itself. The tribe of Dan has returned, and if Dan has returned, the question I ask myself today is, who's next? What other legend is about to come out of the shadows and change the geopolitical map again? If you value this kind of analysis, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you know when I upload a new video. If you like this information and want to know what's happening here in Israel and in the region, well, don't hesitate to subscribe, so don't leave without giving a like and share this video.